happy one more time get the opportunity to be with the brothers and sisters of Ahlul Bayt Islamic Society of New England and ZEC MIT Shia Muslim Association. As Dr. Musali explained, this is an appendix or extra lecture to the three series lecture we had early August. Part of the material, some of the material I say today, I referred to that, especially second lecture. But I think because of shortage of time and other contexts, we didn't find the time to fully discuss the topic. I think it's deserve an attention in somewhat is new topic, less known, and then somehow is a good example how a combination of the modern Western scholarship results, research, and traditional understanding, and some helps to some even resolve or clarify some intra-religious or theological disputes and shed light in some views. And usually this research has been helpful to corroborate the view of Shia. Actually, the trend in the last 50, 60 years was there. As more research has gone, as more facts coming out, it's going to that direction. And so this is a little bit a specific topic, but as I will explain, touches two important historical points and somehow as an example of research methodological way and how different things can come together is used. So it's a little bit more to academic bent, but I review the early part and then put it in the perspective. And I kind of try to avoid too much detail, any detail which is not necessary, and it would be smoothly going. And so, as usual, in this series, I start with these verses. So let's do that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إنما أعظكم بواحد أن تقوموا لله مثنى وفرادا. Say, I give you just a single advice that you rise up for Allah's sake in pairs or singly. Although a little bit our lecture, is maybe people say is out of time because we just finished Muharram and Safar, and then we are in Rabi al-Awwal and in the week of sometimes called Unity Week, which is the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. We just passed 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, which mostly Sunni, most Sunni, or nearly all Sunnis brothers consider the birthday of Prophet Muhammad, and some Shias, including Zaydi Shias in Yemen, we had a huge celebration for the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. And then just a few days from now today's 15th of Rabi al-Awwal. So 2 days from now will be 17th of Rabi al-Awwal, which nowadays most Shia Imami Islam Sharif will celebrate the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. So few days difference. So maybe that was choosing a topic related to the Prophet Muhammad was more apt. I agree, but I think let's just for blessing use this hadith. And I think this hadith also in somewhat shows the connection between Prophet Muhammad, Imam Hussain, alayhi salam. So any clarification in that case, that point will help also. It's somehow related to Prophet Muhammad. This hadith, I am narrating it from there are Sunni versions or all in Sunni textbooks is there, so I just read it for blessing. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله حسين مني وأنا من حسين أحب الله من أحب حسين. And then Prophet, Messenger of God, peace be upon him, and his family said, Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. God likes the one who likes Hussein. And the fact that Imam Hussein is from Prophet is usually understood genealogically or no question in it. But how Prophet is Imam Hussein is usually understood is Imam Hussein movement saved the message, the mission, effectively all the effort, the outcome of the all life effort of Prophet Muhammad. So with having this in mind, and then I maybe request you guys all send the salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for blessing our meeting. But I go to direction of our lecture. And I know that you have other lectures specifically devoted to the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. And we have had many lectures about the Seerah of Prophet Muhammad last year. So, as Dr. Masalai said, the first three lectures we call the classical period, contemporary intellectuals, contemporary religious scholars, and then this fourth lecture is added, is a little bit long title, was Yazid ibn Muawiyah part of the first campaign against the Byzantine Roman Empire, and why does it matter? So kind of it's explain what's going to talked about, and then I discussed in those lectures that discussion about Imam Hussein movement can be done in three related ways. Sometimes looking, so our focus was the spectrum of Sunni views, on Imam Hussein alayhi salam movement. We can look to the spectrum of Sunni views with respect to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his personality, his character, which we did it, especially third chapter and second lecture, third lecture. The spectrum of Sunni views with respect to Imam Hussein alayhi salam movement, which we did a lot, especially in the context of both contemporary thinkers and religious-minded scholars in the second and third lecture, and the spectrum of views with respect to the Yazid ibn Muawiyah, which we did it in the first lecture. And the reason we said it would differentiate their views much more clearly, much more nuanced way, the classical scholars especially. And then a little bit we continue the second lecture, the early part of the second lecture, maybe one third and one fourth of it, which is actually the topic today I want to expand. And then briefly, I don't want to go a little bit again, maybe people haven't had not seen those lectures, and then to um, just summary if people haven't seen. Okay, Yazid was born in Syria, so there's no connection to Hijaz, the birthplace of Islam. They say there is a dispute when he was born, 642, 649. Again, that's interesting, but uh, so they say is he was born a little bit, people push it toward maybe the latter day, 26 after Hijrah. So clearly, so he was born there. And then he passed or died at 11 November 683. He ruled from 680 to, these are, the uh, Western calendar, so 680 to 683. Uh, and then we know the events during his caliphate. The most important one is martyring the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, Imam Hussain, which caused the start of what is called second fitna or second civil strife, which we discussed at all uh, there. But what is we need important to know that his father Muawiyah was first the governor of Syria, and he became the governor of Syria sooner, before the third caliph Osman. He actually became the governor of Syria in the time of Umar, the second caliph. He was governor all the time during the period of Osman, which is the period we are discussing mostly today, 644, 656. And then at 656, Imam Ali became the caliph. He's hold out, he controls Syria till the martyrdom of Imam Ali, which is 661. And then Yazid's mother. So we talk about Muawiyah because today, in some sense, Muawiyah is more important. We said the mother of Yazid was Maysoon, was a Christian from the important tribe of Bani Kalb, which were mostly Christian, and then they were the backbone of power of Muawiyah in Syria all the time, even during the wars with Imam Ali alayhi salam, the war of Siffin, and also after that. So we discussed those. And then we said Yazid was really raised by maternal uncles. They lobbied him to become caliph, and he didn't know much about Islam or Hijaz or so on. He was raised mostly in youth in Syrian desert, and he was mostly in the company of Greek and native Syrian courtiers. And okay, we know Muawiyah chose Yazid as a higher apparent at their latter years of his own caliphate. So Muawiyah kind of died at 60. late 60 after Hijrah, and then and then few years, 4 or 5 years before he dies, he chose Yazid as his successor. We know that Imam Hussain, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and some other people also objected to this, but we know the story, so I don't want to go through that. Uh, okay, what we know that Imam Hussain, something at least I have to mention this, Imam Hussain left uprising against Yazid, left for Kufa to Iraq, later revolt against Imam Yazid. He was martyred with a company of his supporters by the Yazid forces in the Battle of Karbala. And then after martyrdom of Hussein, this provided opportunity to Ibn Zubayr a little bit later, and we all discussed it when we discussed also another lectures about Mukhtar al-Tawabin to do uprising. Um, and then what happened is this. So what I want to emphasize, there are three events important in the period of Yazid short rule of 3 4 years, and all are negative. So he has a very record all full of negative spots. The first one is martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The second one, after people of Mecca, Medina uprised, and then kind of started to support. I mean, uprised maybe a little strong word. Started to support Ibn Zubayr. Uh, mm, Yazid sent an army, and the army surrendered Medina and then defeated the people of Medina in the Battle of Harra, which is August 683. So it's about 2 years, a little bit more after even in Karbala. And then the city was sacked, and then the army was given free reign to do whatever they want. So they committed huge atrocities, killing people, um, raping women, and very, very bad things. So then after that, they moved toward Mecca. So they come to Medina, and then Medina was on the way. They go to Mecca. Mecca was able to hold. They besieged Mecca. Mecca was able to hold the siege for a few weeks, but then the news came that Yazid has died. But during that time, uh, they destroyed the Kaaba, they burned the Kaaba, uh, and but then the army decided to go back to because the Yazid was died, and they don't want to continue to fight. So what we have is this three negative events: martyrdom of Hussein and his companions in Karbala, uh, massacre in Medina, and also besieging Mecca and destroying part of Kaaba, burning it, and so on. What was I will say why I emphasize on this point. But you see, when they write the history of the Yazid, many textbooks, Sunni textbooks, modern Western scholars, even Wikipedia, even Persian Wikipedia, that's okay. Farsi one is translation, exact translation of English Wikipedia. They emphasize uh, uh, the Yazid participation in campaigns against the Byzantine Empire. So you can read this, I think, is from Wikipedia or some source. During his father's caliphate, Yazid. So we are getting to the main topic of today. During his father's caliphate, Yazid led several campaigns against the Byzantine Empire, which the caliphate had been trying to conquer, including an attack on the Byzantine capital, Constantinople. Sources give several dates for this between 49 after Hijrah and 55 after Hijrah. So there is a confusion here. And then many of them, the point is important, even Wikipedia Parsi had, and then I will show you another example today. They consider that to be the first, this first is important, first attack, first campaign, first expedition, especially from the ground on Byzantine Empire, on Constantinople. But Interestingly, the date is very vague. We see again here is wrote 49 after Hijrah, 55. I have other sources, they shift 1 year back, 48, 54. And then some claim so these dates are why important. These become in the during of Muawiyah Caliphate. So Muawiyah ruled about 20 years after the martyrdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam and doing peace with Imam Hussain, which was happening in the year 4041 after Hijrah. So you would see till year he ruled about 60, late 60, 61. So he ruled for 20 years. So the idea is that at some people such as twice, some people such as once, during his time, uh, Muslim army under their control tried to attack Constantinople, the capital of Byzantine Empire. Some say once, some say twice. It wasn't successful, and the date here is so vague, so confusing. And in all of them, they mention, oh, Yazid was part of the army or the commander of army. Um, this source, I think the Wikipedia says Muslim sources offer few details of his role in the campaigns, possibly downplaying his involvement to the controversies of his later career. His ambiguity is there a lot, and then surprising because this couldn't be a simple thing, as we will see, is a huge thing, and then how it is so much ambiguity, so confusion and about it, and and then okay, some sources saying he's portrayed in the sources as having unwilling to participate in the expedition to the chagrin of Muawiyah, who then forced him to comply. Um, but um, but they say there are two 8th century non-Muslim sources from Andalus and the Chronicle of so and so, both of which likely drew the matter from earlier Arabic work, report that army Yazid besieged Constantinople with 100,000 strong army. These non-Muslim sources are not independent. We have discussed this at this time. They are heavily influenced by uh, Islamic sources, and then this is very confused. And much of this writing is also happened maybe later on the Abbasids, which generally have negative view on Umayyads. And sometimes Western scholarship also consider, okay, this negative depiction of Yazid, of reluctance of participating, maybe that influence. But so the idea is that that's very common if you go to the even popular level and so on. But everybody agrees unable to conquer the city. The army captured agents and towns, acquired considerable loot, and retreated after 2 years. That's a very long time. But again, and then also they want to emphasize Yazid led the Hajj, which is also that's disputed because they want to claim some credit, put some positive spot on track record of Yazid and everything as negative during his caliphate. So they must have some too positive thing on his track record before his caliphate. So sorry, this is I think was repeated. To show again the map, I'm going to show the map, another map more accurate, detailed. But this is okay. The whole Islamic Empire, the green ones, an expansion. This is a Byzantine Empire. So Damascus Mavia is here, and the expeditions must be happening from here. And then you see one drawing shows a naval expedition, and then two pathways shows maybe this one also another naval one, and this is the ground attack. Uh, yeah, this is important. We'll see a little bit later on. But here they wrote 2 years. One of them is 1716 to 1717, which is very accurate. This one again, you see, is the one we have over there, which is 670 to 7. This second one happened later on another Umayyad ruler, Hisham ibn Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. So regarding this is no dispute that during Umayyads twice it's been done. Some people want to claim twice in the time of Muawiyah this has been done, but that would make it 3 because this last one there is no dispute about it. and the details, and it is long, how much it take, what they do. This first one, you talk people, you have 7 years, 8 years, and it's so ambiguous what is going on, is the one we are referring. And then the time, okay, as I said, if you change it to Hijrah, goes from 49 after Hijrah to 56, we saw it over there. So it's a very confused one. And then, okay, and then we know after that Muslims were not able to do any attack on Constantinople until Ottoman Empire come about maybe 800, 700, 800 years later, after the last one, which the Sultan Muhammad the Conqueror was able to capture Constantinople and ending Byzantine Empire. Okay, this one, so narrated from Khalid ibn Madan, that Umayyar ibn al-Aswad al-Anasi told him that he went to Ubadat ibn Samit, his famous companion, while he was staying in his house at the seashore of Hems. So Hems, is the city in Syria. Itself doesn't have a seashore directly, but because it's exactly the part now Alawites are sitting and living. But you can figuratively say, okay, the close seashore to Hems, maybe a few hours of couple of 1 day walk. Hems, I don't think is not near the Mediterranean Sea. But anyway, he's at the seashore with Hems. So there's a question in this hadith. So at the seashore of Hems, with his wife Haram. Umayr said Haram informed us. So now they're narrating, saying Haram is narrating hadith from Prophet. Haram informed us that she heard the Prophet say, paradise is granted to the first batch of my followers who will undertake a naval expedition. So it's God promised if one of the Muslims, the first group of Muslims, do a naval expedition. And you remember I showed you in the map, and we are going to see it again, that when they attack Constantinople, some people go on the ground from Turkey, some go around the sea, going edge of Turkey coast and from Mediterranean, Aegean Sea, and going throughout the Constantinople. So will undertake a naval expedition. Haram added, I said, oh, God's apostle, will I be amongst them? And he replied, you are amongst them. Hope, and so this is naval expedition, and already is surprising a woman in and even army, and let alone army, navy. Navy is a very ship, and sea is not a place for a woman, even nowadays. Even we have these modern times. Just give me 1 second. So you're amongst them. Then the Prophet then said, the first army amongst, this is the part is for Yazid. The Prophet said, the first army amongst my followers who will invade Caesar's city will be forgiven their sins. I asked, will I be one of them? Oh, God's apostle, he replied in negative. So the first army who somehow, first it says Caesar's city, which we can assume Constantinople, but that's the word, is it invade or attack? But it's not invade. Look, يغزون, because that's they use it. لأول جيش من أمتي يغزون مدينة قيصر مغفور لهم. So this hadith, now they can fit it for Yazid if Yazid is in the first campaign against Constantinople, and that's they insist to be there. He be there, and all the stories are made. He be there. The early part. Okay, clearly, I believe the story is made up. The hadith. It was not made up for Yazid benefit first, but is made up. I mean, I know the Sunni scholarship, maybe they call it Sahih. I don't know. Is it? No, it's not evaluated. But some of them are evaluated. Uh, I mean, every aspect of it makes suspicious. But the point is this: this hadith was not made for Yazid benefits. Actually, we will see it was made to cover up some problems, Muawiyah, scandalous actions with Muawiyah and other people. Can see the points. But later on, that issue wasn't big deal. People noticed this can be beneficial for Yazid. People, I mean, those who want legitimate Umayyad rules, their courtiers, their scholars working with them, and later Sunni scholarship, which they'll have to keep all the Umayyad rules somehow justified. And despite all those scenes, this action forgive his sin. And all his sins are after that. At this first talk, uh, Dr. Yasser Ghazi, unqualified, without any qualification, kind of accepted this and said, okay, despite all these things, this is happening. And then many of those classical scholars, Zahabi and all those guys, Ibn Taymiyyah, all those big Mamluk scholars, were very knowledgeable, but lost sometimes in details. Kind of, they go this line, they are usually negative toward the Shia. They are somehow want to justify everything. Uh, and then even whitewashing Umayyads, and then you see the effect of them now in these Salafis nowadays, which they really look positively to Umayyah, Bani Umayyah, or Muawiyah and Yazid. Now, as I said, we will see. This is not first. I'm sorry, I'm not going to change my mind. 100% is made up, but we'll see what is the context is made up. But then later on, they notice, okay, that is not working in that context. Is maybe work for Yazid. But to say this is not all the line Ahl Sunnah adopted, and Yasser Ghazi himself, Dr. Yasser Ghazi, in his second talk alluded to these stuff. First, I don't want to go through these. I partially mentioned it, maybe another lecture also in the series I was saying. No, okay, some of them start to poke hole in this hadith and this idea, okay, they notice, because many Sunni, as I said, we have the spectrum, we saw the first lecture. Some of them said, okay, Yazid wasn't the first one. Yazid wasn't in the first expedition. The first expedition happened in year 44, which Yazid is young that time. If still not, it was born 26, he's 18, but the commander of our army was Abdurrahman ibn Khalid ibn Walid, which Abdurrahman ibn Khalid Walid was very known, liked by the people, liked by Umayyads. And then he was ruling Homs, and and I think poisoned by Muawiyah. When he went to put Yazid as a successor, this was his greatest rival of Yazid from inside Syria camp. So so you see hadiths come from they refer those ulama which doesn't want to accept Yazid was in the first. So they want to solve it. Yazid wasn't in the first expedition. So that's you will see, you will ending up, one of the reasons you will see very ambiguity. What was the years and what were the number of the times Muslim attacked Constantinople? Because this is not a small campaign expedition. It's huge. It's huge, as we'll see. So as you see, the date varies from 48 to 54 if they want to include Yazid. And now you have something called 44. Um, and then this is the Arabic one of it. So من ذلك دخول المسلم. I don't want to go too much through this. We have the discussion even by Suyuti. Again, they want to get out of that influence of or effects of this hadith. They use another hadith. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, whosoever frightens people of Medina, then Allah will frighten them. The attackers plus curse lana of Allah, his angels, and all the people is upon such a person. So this is Sahih Muslim. So they put a hadith in front of the hadith. If those guys want to claim Yazid was in the first campaign and his sins are forgiven, either you doubt that was the first campaign, which we are going to do that essentially, but a little bit differently. And then, either you put another hadith to somehow counter that hadith, and then we know he definitely really let his army do a huge atrocities, massacres in Medina, definitely frightened people of Medina. This hadith seems more solid. I think it's that. And then again, I'm not going to go through that because we went partially through that. And then the disputes around this time, and you know anyway, so I think is we can see what kind of internal discussion was, and then this kind of discussion is still reflected. This is intra Sunni discussion. For example, here at least let me finish this part. In 63 after Hijrah, Yazid. This is so you got to know that the people of Medina have rejected him, are preparing to wage war against him. Knowing this, Yazid sent a huge army to Medina, declared war upon the people of Medina. After looting the Medina, he sent army to martyr Abdullah ibn Zubayr in Mecca. And so the incident of Harra took place. Do you know what Harra is regarding it? Hassan ibn Tabi said when Medina was attacked, there remained not a single person who was safe from it. Huge amount of Sahaba and others were martyred, and Medina was looted. 1,000 girls were raped. So definitely, this is the as Masadiq of that hadith. Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal has, and Ibn Kathir has, and so on. And then regarding Yazid, he's in front to show Yazid the other hadiths land him and put him in the hell too, doesn't get off the hook. And then we talk about his poetry, and also the coins minted. But the one we were talking is this one. Look, I have mentioned this before, even twice in a previous talk. Um, it was very briefly, but this is a very good example of, as I said, a modern research. The author doesn't have any idea of this theological issue in his mind. His concern is not at all Shia Sunni theology, Yazid, what is the situation Yazid is. But he's actually, his expertise also is Arabic literature, is not per se historical or his interest. He's mostly interested pre-Islamic poetry, early Islamic poetry. He's very good in that, and I think he have recently published a book. And but because of his command in those poetry, he was able to discern something, resolve some dispute, and then it concluded some interesting historical outcome, and which have twofold in it. One will be related when the first campaign against Byzantine Empire happened, which the answer will be much earlier in time of Osman, at the time which Yazid must be between 2 to at most 9 years old. So never could participated. Even Muawiyah is not caliph, no, later on. And then this, so I give up the whole story. This campaign ended in defeat. And that defeat has very important consequences. And I think was maybe one of the main source of dissatisfaction of Egyptian garrison, Muslim army garrison, which caused them rebel against Osman, third caliph. Because, as I'm going to repeat it many times today, there were the rebellion against Osman, the rebels against Osman come from the three important cities. Fustat in Egypt, Kufa, and Basra. They come to Medina. Although we hear mostly later on about Kufa, Malakashtar, or a little Basran ones, but the real engine, real dispute was from Egyptian ones. And I later on say. And then it's a little bit not that clear what was the cause. There is a cause is listed, but I think this one is deliberately put vague and is hidden, and that's the whole idea. I want to show why uh, uh, this defeat and this campaign is not known. Okay, and then the title will see. Okay, I will explain. The title is about a poem, which is by because it's public. It's like open letter. So the poem is like a letter uh, written or addressing Muawiyah at the first level, uh, then uh, or Amr ibn As, and then Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarah, and effectively Osman. So, although it seems Osman is not clearly named, but is addressing these three people, and somewhat is talking about major Muslim military defeat during the Mediterranean campaign. So that's the long name. Okay. Let me read the abstract. I did this before, but this time we want to go beyond abstract. So look, this is a very shows that what are involved. Based on the Armenian chronicle attributed to Sebeos, Some scholars have argued, okay, Sibelius was uh, this is attributed to Sibelius. Sibelius is a leading clergy, patriarch of Armenia, the church over there. We are not sure this is really writing by him, but I don't think we need to doubt it too. And I had some discussion about Sibel's history or pseudo history they assign it to Chronicles in one of the lecture about Sira. I didn't put it again. Uh, I it's written history. Everybody is one of the importance of it is very early. Sibelius is contemporary of the Muawiyah, so it's written uh, at most 1 decade, 2 decade after the events which we're discovering now, and it's very interesting. Very soon, a book written by Hassan Ruhi will come out from regarding Sibelius, and it has interesting points in it, which some of them in Word even may have some lectures. But look, let's for now put the Sibelius aside. If not, we can go back see what the previous lectures we had. So some scholars have argued for a large failed Muslim expedition against Constantinople in or around 654 Common Era during Osman Caliphate and Muawiyah governorship of Syria. This is not known. This is not clearly mentioned in Islamic sources. Is so vague. I mean, the first one I said is vague, but I'll put it during Muawiyah. And then even as I said, we are not sure is one or two campaign during Muawiyah, and when it is exactly is. We know that one other one definitely it is at the time of Ashab ibn Abdul Malik, but this one is so vague. But then the whole conclusion is that no, the first one is earlier. Others seem to ignore the possibility, especially since there is no reference to such a siege in Arabic language sources. Beyond perhaps one sentence in the story of Khalifat al-Khayyat, there is some indirect reference in Tabari, uh, and non-Islamic sources are one or two, which it seems referring to it, but those are also we don't discuss. The poet, but we have the poet Abu al-Ayal al-Huzali. So he's from a tribe of Huzal, active in Egypt during the reign of Omar and Osman, provides a third possible source for this event in his description of a major Muslim military defeat against the Byzantines. Now, Julius Wellhausen, this is one of the greatest scholars of Islamic studies, one of those German giants from 19th century, early 20th century. He's really genius and good. I like him. The most I think I want to study Orientalist is this guy. And he's very important for biblical studies. He has great insights. He's always more or less in the right track. I'm surprised. And then you see here he has done a mistake, but his mistake is not his fault. And Julius Wellhausen in an Overlook article, and one of these features is that he really paid attention from early to Shiism and Khawarij and doesn't dismiss uh, Shiism because of the Sunni majority. And he's the one wrote still the definite history of Umayyads. Recently, I think the last 5 years, some new books are coming out. Maybe supplant him. Julius Wellhausen in Overlook article noticed the historical significance of the poem, but misdated to 660s. Look, because most of the dates are now in Western calendar, I have to be a little have a reference date. The caliphate of Imam Ali is between 655, 656, 660. Okay, sorry, just give me 1 second. Uh, so what is important? Julius Wellhausen assumed, okay, this poem, whatever it is written during after Caliphate Imam Ali, during Muawiyah period, not as which is okay fitted to those other interpretations which we had, not earlier in the time of Osman. This essay redates the poem to the early mid 650s. This essay, when you go to early mid 650s, put it before the Caliphate Imam Ali. And we know during Imam Ali there was no campaign, no expedition, no war with no futuhat with anybody, and suggests that he refers to an early failed assault on Constantinople. It further argues that although the event is virtually ignored by the Arabic language sources, It can help explain the Egyptian military hostility to Osman, which culminated in assassination. Okay, so we have two goals. One, we a little bit explain more and get better understanding why Egyptians were so angry and upset from Osman. We have some reasons listed, but this one is not. And then we also can see why Amr As have such a role. And also, but also our goal is to show the first expedition against Byzantine, whatever that hadith is, whether it's faked or made up uh, or true, doesn't fit Yazid. Yazid definitely was not part of the first campaign. Because then Abdurrahman Khalid ibn Walid, they may say, okay, Abdurrahman Khalid ibn Walid was, which again, that's also doubtful. It was a commander, and then Yazid was a subordinate, but it's still his sins are forgiven and so on. But this time we know the first expedition is happening much earlier. And then let me say, the hadith, in my opinion, and very clearly you see, is fabricated to cover up this defeat, to reduce its pain and anger of that defeat. Which, and then, Hadith, remember, has naval expedition and ground attack, and both side of it is discussed. Actually, naval expeditions somehow give privilege to Muawiyah in some aspects, although the hadith wasn't clear, but you need to know the history. But again, the history here is so vague, and we'll see that. I mean, why the history has left vague, I can discuss it at the end. But I say it here, and then I will say it at the end too, before I forgot or we lose time. Uh, Look, this is till here, till this event. Muslim army more or less is successful. It doesn't mean they didn't have setbacks. They had setbacks. But overall is a little bit setback, not a total a big defeat. In capturing, fighting Byzantine Empire, capturing Yemen first, but Persian Empire, Byzantine Empire, getting Syria, getting Iraq, getting Egypt. For example, they captured Constantinople, Alexandria, Iskandaria, but then Byzantines, actually they get a treaty, Byzantines left Alexandria, but a few years later they come back and attack, they capture Alexandria. So they have this kind of setbacks and defeat, but none were main. And this one was huge. And then that has always theological implications. Uh, because tell that they always thought God is with at least theological implications for the scholars who wrote this maybe a few hundred years later during the time of Abbasids, uh, which always the idea was that God is with us, this futuhat was ordained. Still, you see, this is what is the mindset of all many Sunnis. The justification of Omar is success, is success in the conquests, validification of Omar. The same way in Protestant ethics, for example, vote is somehow is a sign of blessing of God, so that is why Trump has always get this pass. Uh, uh, so uh, this, and then I think the deliberate cover up and making ambiguous the whole defeat by the Umayyads, and later on Abbasids also didn't see much into uh, to clarify the problem. And even in the Byzantine side also some dynamic is going on. But I will discuss this later on. But look, this is abstract, but look what is the introduction, because this guy is not about the Yazid. In the course of their wars with Byzantines, the Umayyads undertook two multi-year sieges of Constantinople, one starting around 48 and led by Yazid ibn Muawiyah, and the other 98 led by Maslat ibn Abdul Malik. So you see, even this scholar is assuming the first attack against Constantinople started 48, when Yazid is 22, 23, and it's led by Yazid. The second one is the one I said is certain in time of Hisham ibn Abdul Malik, which is done by his brother Maslat ibn Abdul Malik. But then at this, he also agreed the 48, but then rejecting the 48 is the first, because he argued instead of 668, 48 after Hijrah, instead of 68 happens 654. which is about 34, 35 after Hijrah. Okay, because very fast, because this is tribe of Huzayl. Look, Huzayl is close to Quraysh. You see the branching Madar, and then it's closer branch. Huzayl lived close to Hijaz, south of Hijaz too. Huzayl, I saw myself some people nowadays they call them the Huzali, so they're the same tribe. They existed. But during the Futuhat, uh, a group is very well known. Balazar had it. A large number of them were involved in the conquest of Egypt and settled on Egypt. So that part I want to have in mind. Now let's have a map here because some details maybe we go, but I will stop. I tried to go faster and stop the detail, but hopefully I can show some literature one. But let's have the map. Look, uh, Damascus is here, which is Muawiyah's governor. And then Egypt was conquered by Amr As. And the conquest of and upon conquest, Amr As become the governor of uh, Egypt for 5, 6 years, uh, and at the time of Omar. One thing about Amr As is important to have in mind. Later on, in the time of Imam Ali, we see Amr As is very connected with Muawiyah. But it wasn't the case. He wasn't from Bani Umayyah. He wasn't necessarily very connected with the Umayyads, the same like Khalid ibn Walid. Actually, these two converted sooner than Abu Sufyan and Muawiyah. Those guys converted after the conquest of Mecca. These two converted before the conquest of Mecca. And then Amr As was very, as you know, it was very smart, and then when he was sent to bring back Muslims who escaped to Habasha. But it seems he was very familiar with African regions because Quraysh goes different caravans. It seems he has been doing trade in Egypt. He has been the one encouraged Omar to do the conquest of Egypt. Omar was hesitant, maybe was worried the army is too spread, and then gradually was getting worried also maybe these army commanders become too powerful, getting back on him. So he really immediately dismissing Khalid ibn Walid because it was not sure about him. But okay, Amr As persuaded him with very gradual success. They captured the Egypt. Alexander is here, but they built the same model they use in Iraq, which they built Kufa and Basra, which they do not spread out. They do not get the lands which they conquered and distributed to them and start to do agriculture. Omar insisted they keep garrison city. They should remain military. So they start to build the city Al-Fustat, which is near the modern Cairo. And then we see it's very strategic location, before the delta, but just all the way. And then this was the river and so on. And they start to settle down here, and Amr As start to govern. We have the one of few earliest of documents, papyri from Amr As. We have one document mentioning him in the first period of his governorship. But when Osman came, there is a rivalry kind of with him and another person, because these are the characters of the story we have, especially the letters and poems they're mentioned. So the first one is Amr ibn As, but you have to have in mind, he wasn't Bani Umayyad initially, he wasn't close to Bani Umayyad initially. His son, Abdullah ibn Amr As, was a good companion, actually, maybe more supporter of Imam Ali. There is a story that his son talking to him not to join to how much true, I don't know, but not to joining Muawiyah, but at this side. And the reason I think is that he really loved Egypt and he wants to be governor. Something stick to you, and that is how Muawiyah attract him, woo him to promise him, okay, if we come back, help me, we get back Egypt, you will be the governor. Which it seems they have a pact. There's known a pact between them, and I think Muawiyah accepted that because Amr As was really is like his Kissinger, is very smart. And they know how to handle the Egypt because knew the Egypt before the Futuhat, know the Egypt and people over there. He ruled them. But it says there is another guy, which is the third guy, is uh, Abdullah ibn Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarah. Unfortunately, the article is calling him Ibn Sa'd. In the poem, calling him Ibn Sa'd. Ibn Sa'd is confused with Umar ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, the culprit in Karbala. I prefer to call him Abi Sarah. If I remember, I do, but the text of the article is Ibn Sa'd. This guy actually is very different. This is from Umayyads, and then his they call it Osman, and he was milked or what's the name? Nursed by the same woman. So in that way, they kind of brother. They call it Rizai brothers. And then, but this guy was the only one of the few prophets said, when the time of conquest of Mecca, this guy was be killed. Even the hadiths say, even if he's in the Kaaba and he's touching Kaaba, kill him. But Osman give him safety, and Prophet wasn't happy but accepted. But then it seems this guy is under command of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As when they conquered Egypt. But at least if that part was not clear, when Osman get the power, Osman would curb the power of Amr ibn As and send this Abi Sarah to Egypt, and then telling Amr ibn As, you be the commander of military part, he control the financial part. And then, so this is curbing the power of the governor, because there is no military campaign. Actually, there was some later on, but mostly the whole issue, and I see the documents, the papyri said, is administration, collecting taxes. Look, Egypt was very important. Even Amr As said to Omar, look, this is a breadbasket of empire, Byzantine Empire. This is a very wealthy province and weak militarily. So it's a kind of a conquest. If you capture it, they're not very strong to put fight, and then if you capture it, you have lots of things. And then they sending the wheat, barley, other stuff to and papyri to Medina and to Hejaz. There are lots of stories here. That's an interesting story. So by removing the governor from financial matters, you kind of removing governor from position. And he didn't like it, and then it seems. There's something assigned to Ambrose which makes him. He said, like, look, you give me to hold the horn of the bull, so I have to do the hard part, but some other guy is milking the cow, getting the benefits. I did the difficult part, and then at the end, it's soon resigned or removed. So what happens is this: at the beginning of Osman, Amr As is removed from power. But I think he has influence. And that's you see in the rebellion of Egyptians, they're not necessarily Shia Imam Ali, pro Imam Ali. Many of these guys were uh, uh, maybe have some grievances which is separate, and know Amr As better. Amr As, after resignation or removal from governorship, goes settle down in his state in Ashkelon, just north of Gaza, the biggest city now, occupied Palestine, north of Gaza. So he settled down here. So this have in mind. So during this period which we're discussing, this Abi Sarah is the governor of Egypt. Amr As is not, we are not sure what his position is, but it seems doesn't have any official position, but he has influence because much of these guys know him when they're under his command, conquest here, or they have grievances, come talk to him. Muawiyah is here. And then look, the military campaigns which we are discussing, whether the fact there has been military campaigns, look, Constantinople is here. We have, I explain stuff here. Maybe I pass a little bit the historical order because to save time and also mention the ideas before forgetting. We have in the records that, look, also Egypt was importing building ships. They have historically from many ancient times, like now China builds a lot of ships. They have a lot of ship factories in Alexandria. Uh, uh, you know, so and then for any naval expeditions, you need building huge ships, and we'll see that. So Moavia, it seems we know, capture this. This is so close to the shore. This is Tartus. Is in look, you see, uh, on Tartus or Tartus. This is exactly in Syria now, the Alawite region, which are Russian-based for Lazakia, Lazaria, Antakya, Lazaria is Antakya is here. Lazaria, I forgot Latakia. Latakia and Tartus are the two ports of Syria, which is Alawite city. This Arwad is, I show you, an island here, which Muawiyah first, as a governor in a naval expedition, captured here. And then it seems a little bit time order is messed up. He's able to capture Cyprus. That's we know that Muslims captured Cyprus. A little bit timing, but we know. So the fact they do naval expedition, they want to do naval expedition. There's no doubt in it. And then I'm saying why those hadiths somehow are made to fit Muawiyah because he maybe have been involved in some of these early naval expeditions. We don't know any other one before. And then he captured Rhodes. So for now, this island here, this important island here, and this important island here, he has captured. So have this in mind. And then look, that's the island I said Arwad, but the picture is very old, 1935. But this side is Tartus, and then so this was a strategic island. Byzantine had the control of it, so they want to get because this opened your way to the whole uh, open your way to inside the whole Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and then this is a little bit zoomed map. Look, this is Constantinople. And then you can see, maybe the previous one was much better at showing to you. Okay, if Egyptians want to do naval expeditions, which makes sense and we know is done, they may have to go toward here and then moving toward here. There could be some from here also joining them because there's so talk about small boat ships and large heavy ships. We'll see that. And then possibly going toward here or maybe some landing here, but I think is going over there. The other thing I have to add, look, this Phoenix is important because some source of confusion is there too. In this early campaign, which the first campaign, which is include both a naval and a land expedition, Muslims are defeated. That's the main story. The next year, because this is the first big victory of Byzantines against Muslim army from the beginning of Futuhat, from the time they start to capture Battle of Yarmouk, they start to capture Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, and so on. And so all the wars which happened here. The next year, they decide to counterattack and do a naval expedition from Phoenix. Look, Phoenix is here. Uh, Phoenix is here, somewhere here. It seems we have a second battle happened, a counter battle 1 year later. That second battle, Muslim army, it seems able to inflict heavy losses to Byzantines. That Byzantines kind of went back. So it's kind of become a tie. So the first expedition was a bigger expedition, important one, and naval and the ground by Muslims were defeated by Byzantines. Then Byzantines get the confidence, okay, let's do the counterattack, and which once they have done. But before this, once they left Alexandria, but they come back, capture Alexandria, but again, Alexandria was recaptured by Muslims. So a defeat happened here. And that is called the Battle of the Mast, ستونای کشتی, mast میگن. But the reason this is important because the sources confuse this. Muslim sources mostly talk about Battle of the Mast without saying the big defeat before that. And the Byzantine sources talk the first defeat. But at the first war which defeated Muslims and it was a big, but after a while also lost its importance because they lost. Usually the wars as up and down, but history when remembers doesn't usually history is remembered according to final conclusion. Look, I don't know, you remember if the first war after 7th of October, for example, Maqam and Lebanon happening just last year before this time, was different mood, different spirit. And then practically nobody now remembers that. Very upbeat, the images coming, this Mohammed and South Lebanon attack this part, those. But then when things change, kind of that part is left out of history, any apparent early successful. And now we mostly remember the the challenging, difficult ones. This is happening too. So have this background in mind. I go a little bit faster. Okay. Okay. The what about these expeditions? The records and then some mentioning of in Tabari and Al-Khayyat, which is I think wrote the history of Baghdad, mentions that in the land expedition, Muawiyah, which was the governor of Damascus, was moved by the army to here, to Chalcedon. So all the speech are that he was able to become Chalcedon, and which is very close to Constantinople, and they were waiting for the ships coming or to the siege be complete or landing. So that's part of the story. And then that was, I said, that defeated. This is the second war, the one which Muslims partially, and this Abi Sarah was the commander. So the confusion is that there was a big loss, but then victorious. But by that time, uh, some split has happened. It wasn't only the defeat in the war, defeat on the war because it was blamed on the mismanagement and I will see and leaving some of the Muslim units in cold here, trapped here. Muawiyah get the notice that the naval expedition has been defeated, so he start, here Chalcedon is a new dictation. See, Chalcedon is just the other side, Asian side of the Bosphorus, and so army Muawiyah retreat back, but part of the uh, Muslim army, it seems somehow were off guarded, and I don't know exactly what is the retreat path of Muawiyah. Maybe come here, those sheep coming back. Part of Muslim army trapped here, and that's the story we hear. And then they have to find. It took them a long time to break the siege and able to coming back. I think they have to move. The Armenia also was a bigger region at that time. It's not the present Armenia country. Armenia was you see, this part of all the Caucasus and the part of Iran, North Turkey was Armenia. So they were trapped here, and then it took them a long time to go back. And that group which was trapped actually was from Egypt. This was our tribe from Egypt. It seems by the ships coming here, landing here to go by maybe defeating part of the Byzantine army or engaging them. So I don't know the whole detail is because it's a little more complicated. Okay, so this one I prefer go to the article, but I maybe so okay uh yeah okay, let me see. Yeah, okay, because I give you the whole picture, and let me before going to the article and looking to this letter, let me read you the Sebos one. I think that Sebos is interesting. Uh, yeah, look, I give you a taste of it. See, I'm not missing anything. Yeah. So Sebes' account of an Arab attack on Constantinople, the 654, which is, remember, Imam Ali's reign started, Khalifa started 65, 656. Is 1 year, 2 years before. And that's being close is make it correct. So this defeat, mismanagement, and I forgot to say, I was going to say, other resentment they have is how this khums or booty of the war was distributed. Very badly, Osman gave the permission that Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah use it, and then he really mismanaged it. He put lots of money for himself, wasting it. And until that time, because Omar injunctions was in practice, everybody had a known share. It wasn't random or haphazard, but kind of Osman started to change it. So that is the resentment they had. Besides that, and then besides that, there was a tension which we saw it in Kufa too, that early Mujahids, early Muhajirs, early those who do the conquest, settling down in the city, and then the newcomers. And then the newcomers come later. They didn't have fought the wars, but they settled down. They start to receive resources, qatar, the land, stuff like that. And then the earlier sometimes dispute they do not deserve it. And then in Egypt, the tension was higher. And then we see nepotism was happening in the, especially Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, the tribes like Huzayl, which was earlier there due to the wars. Uh, some of the resources or privileges was taken away and given to the other newcomer tribes which haven't done anything. So these all, nepotism tensions were there. So because we don't have all the time, I prefer to go faster. So let's see if I can read a little bit of Sebeos. During the 1640s, control of the sea had protected the Byzantine Empire from outright conquest by the Arabs, which is the fate of Persia was different in that sense. At the end of the decade, however, this shield slipped away with the sudden appearance of the Mediterranean Islamic fleet, which attacked Cyprus in 649. So, as I said, Muawiyah, it seems, was able to capture that island, the Cyprus and the Rhodes Island. Among the several accounts of this attack, only Sibel's version asserts that Muawiyah planned an advance beyond Cyprus. So, look, this is one question I had, and the article also discussed. I was saying why the Muslims stopped. Why, when they capturing Syria, Iraq, Egypt, Iran, why they didn't attack the Byzantine continuously? Because the guy is defeating. It makes sense to capture. And now we know, I know they're capturing Cyprus, they're capturing Rhodes Island. So why didn't go to the end? And then we know that later on Muawiyah intended to do that during his caliphate, but more naturally was when the army was fresh, when the time of Osman, why didn't do that? And the answer is that they did it. And actually it was, but they were defeated. And then that's the history books. They didn't write it very carefully. They're all, this is the first really serious defeat they have. So the logic was there, and the article over there also explained all the examples. But here, let's read from Sibius, because we don't have time. Then the general in the territory of Palestine ordered many fleets to be prepared. So general in the territory of Palestine is Muawiyah. He boarded a ship and undertook an attack on Constantinople. And then now you can see why the hadith may be fabricated. That hadith fabricated to fit Muawiyah, not Yazid. But later on, because that issue of Sahaba justice was developed at 240 by Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Muawiyah didn't need that wild card. So he was off the hook by this Sahabaness. But they thought, okay, let's use it for Yazid. The naval battle was not successful for him because the host of their army opposed him with ships and destroyed them on the high seas. They repelled many by fire and drove off many in fight. However, the king Constance was terrified and reckoned it better to give tribute and make peace through ambassadors. And he wrote to Procopius that he should go to Damascus to meet Muawiyah and conclude the terms of treaty in accordance with army wishes. So this is the early part. Not the one we're discussing. Again, that's also a source of confusion. So maybe is a little bit more than once try, but these are all the times governed. The treaty made by Procopius is recorded elsewhere and probably happened in 650, so it's early. It was 651 because the battle they're talking is 654. Therefore, despite his vagueness, Sebu's report can be referred to the first Muslim naval expedition in 649. So you see why the hadith may be made and fit Muawiyah. Not that lady Sahaba, but Muawiyah. Moreover, even its reference is projected attack on Constantinople can be reconciled with the other accounts of 649 expedition, which describes only devastating raid against Cyprus. So, I mean, sometimes these are big attacks, small attacks, tests, raids, battles, so on. But the one we are looking, I have to go faster. Unfortunately, we cannot lead all. So let's go to Sebos. I mean, look, there are details here. For now, I want to get the gist of it. But let's go to the one which we want to see the poets. Despite his divergence from the other sources, Sibius' incomplete account of the first Islamic naval expedition in 649 seems essentially valid. So I read that one and then kind of connected to hadith, why the hadith may be made up. Moreover, unlike the other reports, it reveals the wider dimensions of Islamic naval offensive, pointing to the likelihood that Muslims intended to attack Constantinople as soon as possible. So they tried, maybe they were weak, they didn't know their strength, they don't know how to do it, maybe they're cautious, but at least to start to capture the islands. Large as it was, the 649 expedition turned out to be only a probing raid in that direction. It seems large, but it wasn't really large in respect to the one we are really concerned. However, the main blow, which fell a few years later in conjunction with the land attack, was one of the greatest armadas in history. One of the greatest armadas in history, no record. Because the first one was a setback, but this is a total defeat, like the defeat of, for example, Khashayar Shah in Battle of Salamis with Greece, or was maybe wrong, reverse. Darius was defeated, and Khashayar was successful, burned army, kind of like that. This is according to Sibius, who recounts. So let's read this one, and then I go to poetry. Now, when the king of Ishmael, so the king of Ishmael means Muslims, Osman, the Caliph, saw that the Persian kingdom had been destroyed. I read a little bit faster, but you can see it too. After 3 years of the peace treaty had fully passed, he no longer wished to make peace with the kings of Greeks. Byzantine Empire, because he commanded his troops to conduct war by sea and land in order to face from there that kingdom as well in the 12th reign of the Constans, which the timing, 652, 653 matches what we have. Sibius returns to account little later. In the 11th year of Constans, the treaty between Constans and Muawiyah, prince of Ishmael, was broken. The king of Ishmael ordered all his troops to assemble in the west and to wage war against the Roman Empire so that they might take Constantinople and exterminate that kingdom as well. All troops who were in the east assembled, but then is maybe a little bit exaggeration because that's the way of writing was, and this guy has theological concerns. We will see that, but he says they bring troops from Persia, Khuzestan, from the region of India, means Pakistan, which we know they were there by that time. They captured some of sand area. Aruastan, I think, is part of the northern part of Iraq and Syria, and from the region of Egypt, say explicitly mentioned. Then they came to Muawiyah, the prince of the army. So Muawiyah is a ruler who resided in Damascus. All these are accurate. They're preparing warships in Alexandria, as I said, in Egypt, in all the coastal cities. They fill the ships with army and artillery. The numbers are big. A little bit, not the number of the ships, but what's in it. That's a little bit produced out, but maybe it is true, maybe not. But at least the whole ships may be there, but the size may be off. 300 great ships with 1,000 elite cavalry for each ship. This is huge. So that's too huge. So they exaggerate too. The army was huge, 1 million people, to then say the victory from God. But maybe 300 great ships with 100 cavalry or 50 cavalry. He ordered 5,000 light ships to be built, and he put them in 100 men for each ship. Then he sent over the sea while he himself took the troops with him and marched to Chalcedon. Chalcedon, I'll show it to you, just the Asian side of Istanbul. When he penetrated the land, all the inhabitants of the country submitted to him, those on the coast and the mountains and the plains. On the hand, the host of the Roman army entered Constantinople to guard the city. The destroyer reached Chalcedon in the 13th year of Constans. He kept them many light ships at the seashore so that when the very heavy ships might arrive at Chalcedon, he could rapidly go to their support. So the big ships hasn't arrived. Behold, the great ships arrive at Chalcedon from Alexandria. So we know the big ships coming from Egypt with all the small ships and all their equipment, for they had stowed on board on the ships manganese. This manganese is manganique. Manganese is manganique. So they're siege tools, siege instruments. This is a new thing because this is a technology thing. They didn't have Muslim army, this manganiques or manganese for attacking the wall, because we know Constantinople was famous for its walls, thick walls and other support. You cannot breach the wall of the city without manganiques or manganese. And so they stowed on board the ships manganese and machines to throw fire. The ships must be big. Really, the ships must be big if they carry manganese. Machines to throw fire and machines to hurl stones, archers, and all the 3 years they were preparing. And machines to hurl stones, archers, and slingers, so that when they reached the wall of the city, they might easily descend onto the wall from the top of towers and break into the city. He ordered the ships to deploy in lines and to attack the city. When they were about 2 states distance from the dry land, then one could see the awesome power of the Lord. Here, because he's a Christian, still has theological view. He wants to say that defeat of Muslims is done by the might of God, hand of God. This is a miracle. And then we see exactly the same wording in the next battle next year, which a counterattack. Muslims defeat the counterattack of Byzantines. We have the record of it in I don't know, it was Balazari or other one, and they kind of used the same wording too, but that wasn't as big and that wasn't as important, but produced a kind of tie. This one Muslims lost, the other one Byzantines lost, and they kind of settled on the issue for a while. For the Lord looked down from the heaven with the violence of fierce wind. It seems maybe a storm came. We are not sure. Maybe not. There is arose a storm. I read that the Asian side wasn't very calm. And that's the reason that 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, the people left the Asian side settlements and went go to the Western side. So this development, the Asian side of Constantinople, is very recent. Recently, Erdogan built this huge mosque. All the historical ones, all the important ones from Galatia to old palaces are Topkapi, all are on the West European side, Western side. And these arose a storm. The sea was stirred off to the depths below. It was piled up high. The wind whirled around over them. The towers collapsed. The machines were destroyed. The ships broke up, and the host of soldiers were in the depths of the sea for 6 days. The violence of the wind and turbulence of the sea did not cease. We are not sure. When the Ishmaelites saw the fearsome hand of the Lord, their hearts broke. Leaving Chalcedon by night, they went to their own land. So this is the retreat of Muawiyah. Escaped. But this is the part, the crucial part, which takes us back to where we were, to the article. The other army, which was quartered in Cappadocia, attacked the Greek army, but the Greeks defeated them and it fled to Arustan, pillaging Fort Armenia. So this is the one which we are going to see this Huzayli group consist of, and they were trapped, and that army in Chalcedon didn't coordinate with these guys. They went back to the safety to Muslim land, to Damascus. These army, which was the Egyptian, trapped in the Anatolia, in the Byzantine Empire, and in a very hard way they retreat back. I mean, historically, we have another story. I think Thucydides, the famous Greek historian, was kind of mercenary. Was Okay, I think Thucydides. Okay, maybe I mixed it. Quick history. But they attack Iran and helping one of the two brothers fighting each other as a mercenary. But the army was defeated. But then they have to trace back from Babylonian in Iraq back to the Lydia in the Asia Minor coast. And then the whole way the Greek mercenary armies stick together and went their way back. He wrote in a book, which we have it, and Going Back Up. The name of the book is Going Back Up, from down in Iraq. So this story, which we will see right now in the poems, is more or less like that. But it's not the detail. We know something this happened to them. Okay, so I think because we have short in time, if I was Ali, I can go for a little bit after 10, 5 minutes.
That's okay.
Yeah. So let's go back to the main article. So what is the article is? We have a poem which Abu al-Ayal, the father of family, his nickname is. There is a book we have from Huzayl tribe, Ash'ar al-Huzaliyat. We have a book which is wrote the poems from this tribe, which is one of the unique book that collect the poems associated with the tribe. And this guy must be among the prominent poets of that tribe. The tribes had poems to do the what during the wars and stuff like that, do the kind of the slogan the rajaz, or they were the advertisers, the public propaganda, stuff like that. So let me go to the poems. I will explain over there because we don't have much time. I put one of them as you see, and yeah, okay. I put this one here. Look, there are a collection of poems. This has this Abu al-Layal al-Huzali. We are interested. Maybe it's 8 poems are interesting, and out of these 3 we may touch. One of them is a kind of a mu'araza with another guy of his tribe. That he explained a lot about it, the article. It's give you a good sense what the tribe was, what the living was, what is the attitude was, what the beliefs was. But it's very challenging, very detailed reading. I mean, explaining is hard. But one phrase is important because very strange. Look, so the other guy, which Mu'ariza with Abu Ayal, first coming positively, complimenting him. But Abu Ayal is upset and doesn't what is the story of this long story, and doesn't accept his complimentary poem and attack him, and then the other guy attack him back, and the combination, they use the same rhyme, the same uh, uh, meter, and to answer each other. So you see, he first says, Abul Ayyal is my brother, so whoever among you does ill to him, injures and harms me. This guy said, the other guy is a bad guy. I have found Abul Ayyal and his clan to be like a fortresses built with well-laid baked brick, which is, this is ancient, from ancient Babylonian, the fortresses are built with the bricks. You discover them from Sumer, Akkad, and so on, which wasn't very common in actually Hejaz, before which calamities manganese fail. So something, these guys were very mighty clan before that disastrous. I mean, it could be like the one in Yemen, the F-18 fall from the carrier, maybe because the ship has to go very fast turn. Maybe the water were turbulent and the ships become too close, and then they have to maneuver, and manganese on the ship are heavy. Having manganese on the ship is not easy, like Lord of the Rings movie, you see, like that. Maybe that's caused the ships fall. So it's maybe it's not necessarily, because even Sibus doesn't say that the Byzantine ships attack them. It just says the hand of God and weather defeated, before which calamitous manganese fail. So that's strange, how something like this, which is not an Arabic word. This manganese is not an Arabic word. So that they depart with its fortifications, its prevail. So depart, and what it prevailed with fortification. It must be Constantinople. Okay, this is the first poem. I'm not going too more on it, but then you would see the second poem is this Abullah Yal say an elegy. That was a Mariza, the first one, which I just showed you, that Manjanique one. Uh, this one is an elegy for his cousin died, but he died in this battle. At least we understood he must be among those group trapped. Actually, it seems he was very bravely fighting. Maybe some skirmishes happened. Maybe maybe those battles which Sabos said, those parts go to Armenia, Cappadocia, or fighting the Greeks. Because as we read, he has died, and Abul Ayyal is making elegy for his cousin which has died, and then so is very positively talking about him. But it's become clear, if the previous one doesn't mention Constantinople, said it prevailed with its fortresses. This time is Constantinople is mentioned, explicitly mentioned. So, uh, so remember this poem. Okay, maybe I forgot to say the main part. Actually, I was saying in the third poem, which is the main one. Okay, I participate in the war against Constantinople. Okay, what is the poem is? So it seems these all must be connected. Huzayli tribe in the same area. Look, this cousin is standing in front of the city of, I call it Al Constantine, or maybe he wants to call Constantines. Maybe call the city of those Byzantine empires. People, when others retreated, that's exactly show the situation when Muawiyah went back, escaped from the Chalcedon, and then, but this time, this cousin maybe wasn't part of the branch trapping Cappadocia, or for whatever reason, maybe it was near the fortresses in Constantinople, but whatever, it seems he stood over there. And then the poet says, "Ah, my God, what a fighter for the tribe." The meaning of these is not so simple sometimes. This verses, okay, it's not very hard. Ah, my God, what a fighter for the tribe you are when they took fright. Asking who will venture forth at the front line to guard us and be on guard. So he says my cousin was such a like that. When other people had retreated from Byzantine, he went forward. So it's kind of indirectly criticizing Muawiyah and other people which left them in the cold. They'd been entrusted with the vanguard's banner, but found no one to carry it. But you were the man for it. When you were summoned, you leapt to it. Okay, so we're talking about Manjanique, a war which this guy stood, is in front of Constantinople. defending it. So what we are doing, showing another historical record from very other side, which was neglected. The reason was neglected, Wellhausen noticed this is important, and he said it's not important, because they dated it wrong. They dated it after the Caliphate of Imam Ali. And the reason they did it wrong, they dated wrong, one of the reasons was Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, the governor of Egypt. They dated his death after Imam Ali. But now we all know Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, the one which our Prophet has said he should be killed in the conquest of Mecca, but Osman gave him safety, died in the time of Caliphate Imam Ali. Very soon after the death of Osman, he went to a city close to, again, Ascalon too, and near Amr ibn As, and he died over there. He died over there. So that all of these put the context that these poems are before the Caliphate Imam Ali. So the war happened before Caliphate Imam Ali. The war happens in the time of Osman. So the first expedition, whatever it is the time of Osman, and it was a total defeat. These lines appear to describe a heroism during attack on Constantinople, other circumlocation, the city of Constantine's people, Medina to all Constantine is unusual. I don't think to spend more time here. Now, the main one. There is a big poem, which is this one, the writer completely translate. Abu Ayyal wrote an epistle to Muawiyah, Amr ibn As, and that Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, which his full name is Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarah. He called him Ibn Sa'd. I tried to call it Abi Sa'd. However, the riches of Abu Ayyal's text are for confirming Hussain's involvement in the 34-64 defeat. So that the pseudo-Sibyls described in his epistles described is his epistle in verse to Muawiyah. So we have the source of pseudo-Sibyls, which completely describe a big war, big defeat, prince of, I don't know, Ismailites, king of Ismailites. This one, a poem. This is an open letter against a poem, an open letter against who? Against Muawiyah. I will finish in 5 minutes. Which established the date and location and activity more firmly. The poem contains a description of military disaster that appears to square with the pseudo-Sibyls, account of the account of the Muslim Anatolian land army defeat following the failed naval assault on Constantinople. So, Sibyls said it. Now we have a poem very differently. Husayni tribe from this side of the story, and has two elements in it: naval expedition and land army. Both were defeated. And then now you can see why those hadiths were fabricated. Those hadiths were fabricated to remove the pain of defeated people. First, put credential for Muawiyah, which he did the first expedition against the Byzantine Empire. And then you see the city of Qaysar. You know, that now actually I was thinking, the city of Qaysar, which the hadith came, matches with this verse which we saw, al-Constantine. I mean, I didn't notice it before this. Look, because it called it Madinatul al-Constantine, and that hadith was called City of Caesar. So Madinatul Constantine is one of the Caesars. That is City of Caesars. Maybe that was the way they referring to it. Instead of Constantinople, maybe it was that. So matches with that part of hadith. You see, it's this jargon. But the point is this. The hadiths of the poem, how dating it. Okay, the fact that there's lots of discussion to show you that Amr As is mentioned, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah is mentioned. I'm not going to go through that. There is in the book, this is recorded. This as-Sukkari, which is one earlier book. You know, we have it in Kitab al-Aghani al-Isfahani, but Sukkari Asharh al-Ash'ar al-Huzaliyin, which is earlier, has it too. He put introduction, because usually they wrote the, for example, Khutbah Fadaki Hazrat Zahra is in Ibn Abi Yafur has it, which is written about 3rd century, Balaghatun Nisa. Then they put usually an introduction when this khutbah was given and so on. He put an introduction, a little bit, I think, some misleading misleading translation is here. Look, Abu Layal, he and some of his companions have been imprisoned. Is not imprisoned. It were surrendered. It's hasr. Hasr means imprisoned, but muhassir we have in Farsi. Because never the poet put him in a jail. But they were surrendered. محاصره شده بودن. Surrounded by the Greek army. That's the whole. The big army, they have to survive and they have to move back while they're surrounded and attacking. Exactly the same I told you for the Greek coming back from Iran. So this imprisoned translation of English is misleading, and the author didn't notice it, have to explain it. But exactly, Abu al-Ayyal, he and some of his companions have been surrendered in the land of Romans in the time of Muawiyah, wrote an epistle letter to Muawiyah and read it loud to the people. So this is open letter. And then and criticizing Muawiyah, criticizing Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, but I think is respectful to Amr ibn As. These guys are not necessarily Shia Imam Ali. They are a tribe which know Amr As, and Amr As hasn't switched to the dark side fully yet. I forgot to say, look, Amr As really coveted the governorship of Egypt. When Osman took it back from him, he wanted to get it back. And that's Muawiyah tempted. Muawiyah knew this guy. So about 20 years later, 13, 18, 19, 20, less, 15, 16 years back, Muawiyah give it back to him. And they put the pact together. So from Abu al-Ayyal al-Afuzai, listen, O messenger, to me speak and don't misspeak the message I sent. So he said, I say these poems, listen to me and transfer it correctly to those people I mentioned. Bring Muawiyah ibn Hussain. So there's no doubt he's talking about that. And then you see no title Amir al-Mu'minin, no title, big respectful. So definitely is a little bit the way he addressing him. No kunya is putting him down, and he's a governor. That the swiftest courier will fly to him with. And the Lord Amr, there are lots of Arabic you have to go, but this Amr, and I think they knew these guys. They called them first time, the first name. Amr was Amr ibn As ibn Sa'd, I think was Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarah, because these were the commander of the army in Egypt, and these were veterans of Egypt war. So they usually call them, for example, we call Soleimani or Qasim or I don't know, Hammat, Bakiri, people know, although we usually in Iran don't call first name, but is known. And the Lord and bring him a page from me on which a finely penned script is visible to Ibn Sa'd, this Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah. If I put him last, it is because he's dividing wrong us when. So he's not referring to that wrong division of the Khums. As when he divided unevenly on distribution day, but I let him go on and defer to his dignity, though I saw what he did. So he wrote to them. His complaint is not exactly directly about the war, but you see directly is the one who criticized the most is the present governor, the governor of Egypt, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah ibn Sa'd. In the Muawiyah, he doesn't address him respectfully, but the Amr, although it seems Amr, we are not sure, but it seems doesn't have any official position. He's living in his estate in Ascalon. He called him Lord Amr, although there is a little bit discussion how this man could be wrote, but it seems correct. Divided unevenly on distribution, but let him go on, refer to his dignity, though I saw what he did. And to whatever reasonable man you come to the upright. So sends this message not only to those three, but to everybody. To whatever reasonable man you come to, tell them. The upright among whom the scripture was revealed. Tell them the good people, the righteous people among the scriptures revealed, that is Quran, came to them. Okay, if you want, maybe you can call people of the book is considered, but I think mostly here Kitab al-Munzal, because you call it Munzal, it means Quran. After you departed, we fought, and then he's explaining. And then look, he was talking to Muawiyah. Look, he clearly sees what criticizing Muawiyah. Bring Muawiyah Hussain. So the first addressee is Muawiyah, then Amr, then Abdullah ibn Abi Sarah, then everybody who hears it, then the righteous of the Muslims. And then what? After you departed, we fought in our camp, is complaining about you left us in the cold and dark, alone, surrendered. Near the fields are a day that will be asked about, and an escapable chest oppressing affair. So it wasn't positive affair, it was very tough chest oppressing affair, in which Sue's blood was shed. Throughout the battle, you see the strong young fighters of ours, like his cousin, falling and sporting like a water screen spout, and others say it's spilling their brains, while others are bent double, coughing up blood onto spearship. It's like, you don't coordinate, and one unit goes back and left the other unit in the front, and they're surrendered and have to fight. I know this had happened even sometimes Iraq War too. And now Rajab has come and gone. Now it's giving the time, but I think for the poetry reason, or change the order. Because of once. He said, now Rajab has come and gone, and 2 Jamadis and the month of Shaban. So we're talking about 4 months, but Jamadis, should be before Rabi'a Khan Jamadi wa Jamad Sani, and then Rajab and Shaban. But 4 months. He counted because of poetry like that. And then he adds, it seems has come, and we thought for 9 full. Is call it nights? I'm not sure. Is it 9 nights they fought, or 9 months? He translated nights because he worked on it, but I was thinking maybe, I don't know, I was inclined more months, but anyway, but anyway, 4 months they're surrendered and they're retreating back. Among these 4 months, maybe they have 9 nights of very tough fighting by the enemy, and that we counted that their army had left. At some stage they fight, maybe it's 9 days. They thought those armies surrounding them left because they fight them, they defend them, they push them back. They thought they left, so they said, okay, we can go back. But then we saw, but suddenly a battle broke out that milked blood. The Byzantine army left, they act like they have left and let these guys go. They get kind of get it easy, like happened in Iran in this war, 12 days war, and then they start to attack back. And at the hands of a false and deceitful enemy, then they headed back to the edge of the open area, halting at times moving on until they departed. But at the end, these guys resisted, able to move back. The arrows were whizzing around us, their heads like wheat spikes sleeping, and the spears were like taut-well ropes as they stabbed at us, and we stabbed back. So, look, because I want to finish it, look, you can see this is clearly explaining a war, explaining that which Seba was explaining a war which is no trace of it in Muslim sources, but because it's the total defeat, is a huge defeat, is a naval defeat, is a land defeat, and a mismanagement because Muawiyah immediately escaped without coordinating, coming back, left part of the army, especially this Huzali unit, in the cold, surrounded by the Byzantines, and they survive. They come back despite all the odds, and they're angry because first they lost many of their youths or people for no reason. The war was mismanaged, and now after the war is mismanaged, the homes of other regions are really randomly distributed. This sentence helps. Sudud Sibis described the Roman defeat of the Muslim land forces set along with a naval expedition against Constantinople. The other army, which was quartered in Cappadocia, attacked the Greek army, but the Greeks defeated that Muslim force. Maybe a part coming back from Chalcedon, or a part was Cappadocia. Maybe there were 2 sections fled to Arslan, pillaging Fort Armenia. After the autumn had passed and winter was approaching, the army Ishmael took to Quartus Divan. Okay, one other good thing. Maybe I finish by this. Look, it was 4 months. Maybe I was wrong. 9 months, 4 months, 9 nights. Okay. And then why 4 months? Because they have calculated when was the Rajab and Shaban and Jamadi al-Awwal and Jamadi al-Akhar in the year 34 after Hijrah and 654 after Christ. And that exactly matches autumn and winter. It is, I think, November, October, maybe January, December, somewhere around that time. So the timing CBOs gives 4 months, autumn and winter, which they have to surrender, matches the 4 months in the poetry of Abu Ayal, and then so this is the other evidence he's right. So 4 months surrendered, nine nights of it, very heavy fighting, and I think what we conclude is this. This is another evidence which the first expedition didn't happen in the time of Muawiyah. Yazid couldn't be the part of his expedition. This hadith, although fabricated, even accept true, cannot fit with Yazid. This hadith most probably fabricated for benefit Muawiyah. Later on, they use it for Yazid. But besides that, now we are more clear why the Egyptians are the most angry of all the garrisons from the Osman. Because they have lost, many of them were lost for, like, Karbala 4, other ones, people are upset. What was the whole mission? What about? Is it deceiving or, I don't know, a defeat or something like that? They were angry about it. And also after that, even the worst, not only this happened, their governor is the worst in distributing homes and conquest booty. And I think I will stop here. Yeah, I will see anything. Yeah, I will stop here. If anything important, even I think is enough for now. So thank you for patience and listening, and I will stop here.